And okay. Now it says the session is being recorded. Right. Delighted to hand you over to Kriti Chhaparwal from Degree, taking us through the skills-based future. It's all about your skills-based organization. Time for me to turn off my camera and for Kriti to take it away. Over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Really excited to be here. As Donald has already introduced me, I'm Kriti Chhaparwal, joining you from a very sunny Mumbai in India. And I've been in this industry for about 8 years, been with Degree for over 3 years now, and very excited to be here. Today, we're going to be using our time together to really start a dialogue around skills-based future and discuss how we can navigate this transition in a fast-paced world where skills are evolving so quickly. Now, this concept of skills-based organizations is so quickly evolving, and we're only starting to scratch the surface with what we know. So again, as Donald mentioned, I'm very keen to learn and share with you. There is no monopoly in learning. So I want to learn from you as well, as much as you will learn from me. So again, there are polls, there are check-in questions built into the session, into the slides here to help me hear from you. But even in chat, even in comment, please feel free to share how these insights that we are talking about today, how are they resonating with you? What are you experiencing within your role, within your organization and your businesses as well? All right. So let's dive in and begin this journey towards a skills-based future, because the role of skills is becoming more prominent than ever before. Organizations today have a unique challenge at hand. They are tasked with finding new talent along with upskilling and reskilling their existing employees, all while the skills profile of many jobs continue to evolve. It's like trying to catch a moving target. And what's emerging from successful use cases, from successful researches, is that skills-based strategies can help organizations be more agile, can help organizations anticipate and respond to change better, and deliver on their evolving business strategies as well better. So let me quick start the session now with a check-in question. How is your organization approaching skills and a skills-based future?
I'm really interested in the answer to this one, Kriti. I want to help, for everybody in the room, what does this mean to you? And if you could put your answers in this big box we've opened up underneath that question, and put the answers here.
And the answer can be anything. It could be that you are in the strategizing phase right now. You're thinking about it. It could be that you don't have time right now. There are other priorities within the business that are taking precedence over this, or probably you're in the executional, in the tactical phase of approaching skills, piloting it in parts of the business, maybe any practice as well within the business. So the answers can range from anything, wherever you are. Very keen to hear.
Also, I see Katrina. I'm having to spend a bit of time with Katrina and her audio, which I don't know why it's not working. So I'm just sending a message to her. But look, Shelby says, aligning skills with our strategic workforce planning with all learning built in Degree learning paths. Well, sounds excellent. I would love to know, Shelby, more about how you're doing that, because it's something that a lot of people would love to be able to do. And the thing is, this sort of thing is very easy to describe, Kriti, isn't it? We're aligning our workforce plans with our learning, but it's hugely complicated in the detail. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely, it is. It's a very complicated challenge and task, and organizations that are doing it right now are seeing a lot of benefit. And a lot of organizations, actually, from a Deloitte report that came out last year, it was found out that 98% of the organizations are actually starting to explore skills-based approaches. So this is really a very vastly adopted practice.
Daniela says designing a new learning and development strategy. So building a new strategy and then presumably it's skills-based. Claire saying we started with core capabilities and looking at how skills can be associated with them. And that's a classic approach, isn't it? You don't try to do everything, but what are your core capabilities? Align your skills with those. But we're also looking at them for strategic workforce planning. And I'd love your ideas later on, Kriti, about where should we start with that? If you're doing strategic workforce planning, do you try to plan it across the whole organization or focus on one role or one department? Magdalena says, we're very much on the way towards SBL, skills-based learning, but would love to understand how skills profiles for roles and the skills curriculum intersect regarding proficiency levels. That's a really complicated observation, but it's a sophisticated view that you if you're doing skills-based planning, you can't do it without having, I don't think, proficiency levels. And so you then, that adds an extra level of complexity to it. Got a skills framework being rolled out, Marta says. Nicholas, procuring a new platform, allow us to move towards it. So I'm getting the idea that a lot of people in the chat, Kriti, I mean, some are very well advanced, but a lot of people are sort of, they're thinking about it, they're moving towards it. I'm hoping that we'll be able to give them some advice in this about, okay, as you move towards it, what should you do? And by the way, everyone who's already doing it, Magdalena, others, Claire, let us know, and Shelby, let us know what you're doing in the chat as we go on, so that other people can learn from you what great experience you've built up. Great. Skills alignment, yes, as Shelby said, skills alignment to strategic workforce planning was a huge effort, brackets, 2 years of planning. And that's the sort of timescale I'm hearing elsewhere, Shelby. So congratulations on getting through it. And it does mean you've got to have that high level buy-in. Kriti, I'm talking, I'm going to shut up. It's your show and you've got all the information. Can you, I think you agree, this is a good insight from the audience. Shall we carry on?
Yep, absolutely. So happy to see so many of you already embracing, adopting these approaches. And I'm hoping that the session also gives you a little bit more guidance, insights, inspiration to taking it to the next level. But I want to actually acknowledge what's happening in the world today. Our reality is rapidly shifting. In the last decade, we have seen so much change. We saw that double disruption of automation, of digitization, all accelerated by the pandemic. And now we are in this era of the metaverse and generative AI. Technologies which are revolutionizing the way we operate, the way we are interacting with others, the way we are imagining, creating, innovating. We are never going to be the same ever again. And businesses are adapting, no one wanting to be left behind in finding new ways to connect with their customers, in finding new revenue streams, even re-innovating their entire business models. And what's happening is that new jobs are getting created. If you think about the concept of AI prompt engineering, it did not exist up until a year ago. And today, it's the hottest job to have in AI. But the skills that are required for our current jobs are also changing. There was this Randstad survey that came out earlier this year, which said that job postings requiring skills in generative AI increased by 20 times in just this year alone. So the standardized tasks that were built for speed, scale, efficiency are actually being done better and better by chatbots and machines. And our jobs, you and mine, it's really evolving around being really highly adaptable, working in ambiguity, even leveraging these technologies to really work smarter, better, and quicker. So it's not about AI and these technologies replacing our jobs or replacing us. It's actually about how we can leverage these technologies to work smarter. Now, I want to go on and check in with you right over here. Have you noticed a shift in the skills that are needed for your jobs? Or maybe within your organization or within the industry as well that you're operating in? Great.
So
I'm seeing...
And Kriti, when you say that, let's not say what we're seeing with the polls yet. We're broadcasting the results. I don't want to influence people, but are we talking about the skills that we're working with, or for learning and development, or for the people who we're supporting, or is it everybody?
Everybody. I think some of the skill shifts are very subtle, and I'm just wondering if we're even observing that this is happening, even if it's from the edges on the side.
Jed's got a question about the graphic we used earlier, powdering a Rubik's Cube. I don't know what he was doing, Jed. Maybe he was searching for fingerprints on the Rubik's Cube. Anyway, but top marks for detailed examination of the of the presentation. I'd be interested to know also, everybody, with that, if you've got anything you want to add around the skills that are shifting. So are you doing more with ChatGPT, for example? Or is it that, I don't know, there's something else that's new in your role that has changed in the last year? I know from conversations with people in learning and development that there has been a huge amount of shift in these. And what happens is a bit like Ernest Hemingway said, the bankruptcy happens in two ways, very slowly, then very fast. And I get a sense that's what's happening with skills in learning and development. There's been slow change, and then it seems like now we're hitting a lot of very fast change in the skills required. Kriti, I can see people are chatting and they're putting stuff in the comments. And Jed is saying integration tasks are the biggest change post-digital revolution. You know what? I, for a number of years, have been saying that the next big thing, we have some big thing every 10 years. The next big thing is integration. And I think that's absolutely right, Jed. For me, that's the big thing on the horizon, probably next year and two. It's only going to get more intense. Kriti, I'm just going to move us. AI won't take your job, but oh, Magdalena, like that quote.
Absolutely.
Well, AI, yeah, I'm going to put that on a t-shirt. I'm going
100%.
to just, yeah, go on.
Yes.
Kriti?
100% agree with this quote, Magdalena. I just read this recent research just about yesterday. There was this case study that Harvard Business Review did with Boston Consulting Groups, where consultants with AI actually outperformed their peers who did not have access to AI. They did 12% more tasks, 25% quicker, with 40% better quality of output. So really to say that if you're not leveraging AI, you're probably going to be left behind. And also that AI is actually kind of this skill leveler almost right now for us. So very interesting to see your comment, really resonating with that study that I read yesterday.
I saw it as well. I'm trying to find the link to it. I will find it and put it in. Meanwhile, Kriti, back to you.
Yes. And this is actually also getting resonated with multiple other researchers. This one I found really interesting by BCG again on shifting skills, moving targets, and remaking the workforce. So this study is highlighting how skills profile across all jobs are changing globally. The pace of change of skills is incredibly fast in the tech jobs, as we would expect, with data engineers really being at the top of the tree. But there are also other jobs here that we can see, such as talent acquisition, recruiting managers, chief executives, physicians, musicians. So really, even non-tech jobs are experiencing skills profile really changing. And a couple of interesting trends are coming out from this research, from this study that they did. One was the rise in digital skills. So really skills like digital marketing and data analytics are becoming really important for everyone, all the roles, not just for people in IT. The second trend was the increasing importance of soft skills. So the ability to communicate, the ability to listen, build relationships is becoming increasingly important even in digital roles. The third one was the rise of visual communication. So experience with tools like Power BI, with Tableau is becoming more and more important for roles that are outside of the traditional data roles that we expect. And I think a lot of us would be resonating with this one because we already see data analytics become more important for HR and L&D as well right now. And the fourth trend was the rise in social media skills as organizations want to connect with their customers using social media. So if you look at this study, what's really jumping out at me is that skills are changing across the board, be it tech jobs, be it non-tech jobs, across the labor market. We're seeing these skills for these jobs change. And this is getting validated by some of the studies that are coming up. The first one is the World Economic Forum research with Manpower in 2022, which stated that 75% of the organizations said that they are grappling with skill shortages, with talent shortages. So really that ongoing war for talent really continues to be a challenge for us, with 48% of CEOs citing that skill shortages remain their top three concerns from this very latest CEO survey that Deloitte did in February this year. And the pace of change of skills is incredible. This LinkedIn economic graph research shows us that over a quarter of global skills have undergone significant transformation. But what's really astounding is this prediction by World Economic Forum, which states that 1 billion jobs will actually experience a shift in their skills profile in the next 10 years. So really this need for action is also becoming clear. And this latest Future of Jobs report that came out showcases also that 44% of jobs with expected skills profiles is going to see significant changes over the next 5 years. So again, the kind of pressure, the kind of timeline that the global market is under is really significant. And with these significant changes being our everyday reality, and also with the way technology is evolving, we're now in an era where the pace of change of technology is faster than the pace at which humanity can learn. If you think about ChatGPT, it reached 1 million users in just days. And that threshold was very quickly broken by Threads just days after, which reached 1 million users in hours. So really, the pace of change is so fast, and the skills gap is only growing. And hiring to keep up with this change, hiring to keep up with this changing skills is no longer feasible. It's no longer plausible for us. And we're seeing organizations invest very heavily in upskilling their workforce. We're seeing Infosys, for example, they are actually training, upskilling their cybersecurity experts in various adjacent skills, adjacent capabilities. We are seeing Amazon, via its machine learning university, train its employees to become experts in the area. In fact, one study from Boston Consulting Group says that organizations are investing 1.5% of their total organizational budget into these upskilling and reskilling activities for their employees. All because successful organizations are understanding that the only way to outperform other companies is to outlearn other companies. And while learning is becoming so crucial, so critical to our survival, we're all learning in such different ways. Learning is no longer bound to certifications or formal courses that we did once a month or once a quarter. We're now learning all the time in different ways outside the flow of work or inside the flow of work as well. We could be learning by listening to others, such as this webinar. You could be learning in this webinar, could be learning by watching videos, listening to podcasts, following thought leaders on LinkedIn or other forums. For me, just to prepare for this conversation alone today, I had months invested in doing research, following those thought leaders, listening to videos and podcasts, and really reading through a ton of material on the web to ensure that I'm trying to build that expertise. And this is my favorite quote ever. This is a quote by our CEO and founder, David Blake. He says that the future does not care how you became an expert, just that you did. Because there are so many ways to build expertise, and our formal degrees no longer define the skills that we have today. McKinsey, very interestingly, coined a term called STARS, which is skilling through alternate routes, which is becoming more and more prominent today. And how we learn, when we're thinking about how we learn, we often think of content, but content consumption is just part of how we learn. It's a part of how we learn in formal and informal settings. But we're learning in so many different ways. We're learning by sharing insights. We're learning by receiving feedback, getting mentored. And when you think about real life scenarios, we really need to actually learn by applying our skills. So it's not just about content, it's not just about theory. Then real behavior actually encapsulates those opportunities to apply our skill sets, opportunities to interact with others, to collaborate, to make decisions, to solve real problems. And by embracing all the ways in which we learn, and by making skills at the center, we can actually drive greater impact and lead our organizations to greater durability. And that's the reason that organizations that are embracing skills-based approaches are seeing the impact. A Deloitte Insights report 2022 states that organizations that are embedding skills-based approaches are 63% more likely to achieve their business goals and outcomes than organizations that are not adopting skills-based approaches. And we are seeing so many successful organizations, IBM, Boeing, Unilever, all of them explore skills-based approaches. And I want to double click on Unilever, this organization that is pioneering its way to becoming a skills-based organization. Unilever is really approaching this entire transition in a very unique manner. They're actually looking at jobs and dividing it into tasks that need to be done over the next 5 years, be it by full-time employees, be it by gig workers or contractors. So all departmental work at Unilever is now being divided into projects, gigs, and deliverables with the hope of shifting away from that siloed structure and creating more of a focus on employees' skills and employees' outputs that they are able to deliver. And on top of this, Unilever is also creating something called a My Future Fit plan. They are encouraging employees to create one for them, where every employee is empowered to select one or more pathways to help them to upskill either for their evolving role or for reskilling in another role within the company. And with the right ecosystem, with the right tools, Unilever now understands the skills that its employees have, as well as the skills that they will need in the future. And because Unilever can deploy skills to work, skills to tasks and projects, the results are astounding. They have managed to create 700 hours of capacity. They've unlocked that capacity, put against 3,000 business critical projects, all while reducing the need to hire, while increasing productivity by 41%, and by enabling employees to upskill or reskill rather for completely new roles in completely different functions in just about 6 months. So skills-based organizations are seeing the result because these organizations are able to deploy skills at the right place at the right time, making them 107% more likely to place talent effectively. These organizations use skills to make all the decisions around borrowing, around building, around buying skills, making them 57% more likely to anticipate and manage change. Skills-based organizations are the organizations that have hiring managers and recruiters talk the same language of skills, understand the supply and demand of critical skills within the organization, enabling them to optimize learning needs by curating targeted programs, making it 98% more likely to retain high performers. So it's clear that SBOs are engaging its people. SBOs have a reputation of to be a great place of work because they are the organizations that are able to manage employee careers better by giving them growth opportunities, by developing careers more effectively. So now that we understand that there is a real business case in becoming skills-based, how does that journey really look like? And the journey to becoming skills-based and the journey to embracing the skills-based future is actually a very holistic one. It incorporates training, learning, and skilling. If we see how traditionally this focus has evolved, and by no means am I here saying that this is a linear journey. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But initially, we saw organizations, they had a focus on being productive, establishing core training functions in place. The entire focus was to ensure that the organization is compliant, people are productive, improving efficiency, delivering speed and scale of development of learning, and really measuring metrics such as number of hours of learning done, number of people trained, number of costs per learner, and so on. We then saw that focus include effectiveness. So organizations wanted to be effective. They started to align learning with business so that pockets of expertise is getting developed, either via functional academies, by capability academies. And the focus was around collecting learning data, measuring program efficiency, understanding the knowledge gained, as well as the behavior retained. And then, as organizations started to understand that learning has an impact on the organization's success, on the organization's competitiveness, then organizations started to invest in enhancing that learning experience, enhancing or amplifying that employee engagement, all by creating a culture of continuous learning, by micro learning, blended learning, social learning, all so that learners are actually learning in the flow of work. And then the pandemic came, the need to adapt, the need to pivot accelerated. And then we saw organizations look at internally to understand if they have the critical skills. And learning became more adaptive, needing to deliver on those evolving business strategies, giving way to those strategic skilling initiatives. And skills became the currency of work. We saw skill progression, skill shift tracking, skill mobility taking the forefront. And then we're in this age today where organizations are needing to be really agile. Organizations are adopting skills-based strategies, enabling employees to transact on skills, using skills for workforce deployment, proactively planning talent mobility depending upon the needs of the business, and creating this highly inclusive and high-performing culture where skills are driving all the decisions. So quick poll over here. Very keen to hear from all of you as well. Where are you on this journey towards being skills-based? Are you right now looking at training more? Is that learning that you're doing a little bit more? Is that skilling where the focus is? Or is it all of the above?
Kriti, I jumped back that slide just so that
Yes.
people could be clear when they're answering the poll. Where are we talking about? Training's focused on the productivity side of it, perhaps on the transactional side and the core stuff. Learning, as we know, building for future capability, but then skilling is, well, the whole skill talent life cycle. So let's ask that question. Where are you on this journey towards being skills based? And have a look at that poll on the left hand side. And if you've got any observations about it, there's a big box in the middle there, poll 2 discussions, where you can drop in your thoughts about where you are, or if you're not sure, what do you think? And actually, it looks like a fairly normal distribution, all of the above. A couple of people are saying, but I think most people are saying they're more towards the, if you like, the bread and butter side of training, which is of L&D, which is the training side of it. I think for a lot of organizations, even having a culture of continuous learning is quite a big ask. Kriti, while these thoughts come in, and I'm just going to start broadcasting the results now. While these results come in and we look at them, what's your thought about how progressively difficult each of these steps is? Training is where certainly I come from. I started as a stand-up trainer. Going towards the idea of culture of learning and then towards skilling is, I think, quite big leaps. How complex is it in L&D and for the business to make that change?
It is definitely incremental, but again, as we're seeing skills-based organizations becoming the talk of the town right now, we are seeing organizations increasingly embrace it, even if it's not for the entire organization, even if it's for smaller functions. Especially, I think we have seen this be more adopted in functions of technology and finance. There was this podcast I was listening to by Michael Griffiths. He leads the learning practice at Deloitte, and he also cited this transition actually being driven more in these certain functions, and then it's like a land and expand kind of a strategy where you start with these functions and then expand further. And it's so interesting to see these poll results. And this is kind of a trick question, actually, because I do feel that moving towards a skills-based future needs to have it all. It needs to incorporate training, learning, and skilling. We need to ensure that we are enriching the entire employee life cycle through all of these aspects so that as an organization, we are thriving. Again, it's not I don't believe it's a linear approach. I do believe that it's overlapping quite a lot in different functions of the organization, but it's definitely a holistic approach. We cannot ignore training. We cannot ignore learning. It needs to be all together.
Kriti, I love the way you put that. My own model of this is I regard it as a mountain. I say that you walk up the mountain and the stuff on the foothills is the training, the day job, getting the compliance done right. And then you get to the top of the mountain, but you can't get to the top of the mountain, which is the skills-based organization, without doing everything else on that long path to get up there. But there's also that when you get to the top of the mountain, it's snow covered and you need different equipment and different skills to get that last bit done. And those skills you don't learn on the bottom of the mountain. So you need to pick up extra skills from somewhere else to be able to reach the summit. Thank you, Jed and Rebecca, for your comments here. I like Jed's point. Teaching actually is a really useful thing to look at rather than learning. It's more systemic and there are clear things you can do. Rebecca's moving all the various L&D departments into one centralized skills-based organization. Smiley face. I think the smiley face is her smiling through the pain of centralizing all of those L&D departments, which probably is not easy. And good luck doing that, Rebecca. Magdalene is just typing. She agrees. Magdalene is just typing. When she's finished that, we'll move on. Jed's putting some useful links into the chat. Would moving to learning mean you are more focused on assessments? I'm going to move that into the questions box because I think that's really something useful to look at a bit later on, Magdalene. I think it's probably part of a big question about what we're doing here. I'm going to move us on. So that box in the middle will disappear. And then I'm going to ask, then we'll go back to our regular format. There we go.
Yep. All right. So again, with this trick question and with this holistic approach, we're going to be discussing a few comments from that one. With learning, training, skilling, all being important for the organization to be thriving, The foundation really is actually built into a very clear and targeted skills strategy. Organizations, and in the diagram that I saw over here, in this diagram, when organizations are actually leaning towards being effective and aligning learning with business, that is actually when this transition to becoming skills based actually starts to happen. Because it is important to have critical skills to be able to deliver on business strategy, to develop those functional capabilities within the organization to get work done, which is important. If you think about insurance industry, just as an example here, it is an industry that is riding on this wave of tech-driven innovation. We are seeing traditional insurance companies uh, transform themselves into insurtech companies. And along this transformation, they need critical skills such as telematics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, automation, all so that they are actually innovating and delivering those low-cost solutions to their customers. So these skills are really, really critical to actually deliver on our business strategies and do these transformations really successfully. But again, from another BCG study, it was found out that only 24% of organizations that were surveyed were actually establishing a clear connection between their corporate strategy and their skilling efforts. So, how do we really bridge this gap? It really starts with understanding very comprehensively the business strategy that we have. And once we understand the direction that we're heading in, we need to then pinpoint critical skills that are required to achieve the business goals. This approach ensures that our skilling efforts are in line, absolutely aligned with the core needs of the business. Because it's not just about thriving today, it's actually about being ready for tomorrow's challenges. And one of our clients, Ericsson, absolutely an organization that I adore and I talk a lot about. Ericsson actually has a systematic way of identifying skills, which is baked into their strategy setting process. So the learning teams within Ericsson collaborate with the strategy team for something that they call as skill sensing. As a part of that strategy setting process, they identify and prioritize global critical skills, and then these skills are honed via upskilling, reskilling, cross skilling. So, for example, as part of their ongoing digital transformation, which is a multi year reskilling, upskilling strategy that Ericsson has created, they've identified those critical skills connected to their strategy. And those critical skills are now flowing into various accelerator programs and skill building journeys to enable telecommunication experts in Ericsson to upskill in the areas of AI, in the areas of data science. And this is a multi-year, high-investment project with quarterly business reviews on the Ericsson side, which has enabled them to just in 3 years upskill 15,000 people in the areas of artificial intelligence and AI. So really, we're seeing that connecting to the business value makes a whole lot of impact. That is the foundation.
Very quickly, we got a question from a Katrina, and I'm sorry, Katrina, we should probably have dealt with this earlier. She says, what do you mean by building a skills inventory? She says, I can't hear the conversation, but what do you mean by building a skills inventory? So if Katrina was having some trouble with audio earlier, can we quickly write down some information about what a skills inventory is? Would it be fair to say it's a skills framework, Kriti, a description of a list of skills with definitions against them? And would you also, I mean, the skills framework explicitly has levels on it. Would you say a skills inventory includes levels?
When I talk about skills inventory, especially in the context of this conversation, I actually almost am thinking about understanding the skills that exist within the organization as well as the level at which they exist on. Donald, I think what you mentioned, identifying skills and defining those skills within the organization, potentially would fall into the category of creating a skills taxonomy, understanding the language of skills that we're going to be talking about. We are going to touch this a little bit more, Katrina, in one of the slides that I have just about 3 slides down the road. And I can actually talk a little bit more about this.
Let's do that. And the Ericsson case study is a fantastic one. I've been following it for a number of years. It is extraordinary what they're doing. And Magdalena points out, look, she's also saying, could you share more on information on Ericsson's skill sensing how on earth you're able to do that. But I'm guessing you're going to do that in a minute.
Yes, absolutely. I am going to. And I love the case study of Ericsson as well. I keep saying this to Donald and to everyone that the CLO, I'm an absolute fan of hers. And the way they do it is so baked into strategy. And I would love to hear as well over here if anyone else is actually doing it a little bit differently, if there's a different approach, again, as we move on to this poll as well, for people who might just say you've mastered it or you are in progress, because I would love to quote you as well in one of these conversations and give your examples as well to others. But we are going to cover those aspects a little bit down the road. All right, Donald, are we able to play the poll?
Sorry, I was reading the chat and trying to deal with other things. Yes, sorry. Let's go ahead with the poll. Go ahead. So we'd like to know, where is your organization in this very tricky business of connecting the learning strategy to the business strategy? And yes. Now, Katrina's asking, I'm just going to answer her in the chat. Do I mean a skills audit? And I'd say yes, a skills inventory is the result of a skills audit. You're typing, Kriti, so I'll let you. You're the expert. You go ahead and do it. And I think while that's happening, as I'm looking at the poll results, where's your organization in connecting the learning strategy to the business strategy? Most people are saying, well, we're in progress, we're doing it. And I think that's a very honest answer, because I think most organizations probably are trying to do it. It's underway, but I'm not sure you ever really finish the journey. So I think I'm rather pleased that nobody has ticked mastered it. So I think that's impossible. Yeah. We've done a skills inventory, says Daniela, and the actual development, there we are. So Daniela, look, you might want to get in touch with Daniela. She was saying there that, yeah, we've done a skills inventory and contrasting where we are with where we want to be.
That is great. And again, I think everyone else over here would appreciate more insights from you, Daniela, because it is difficult to do this. It is difficult to identify, pinpoint those critical skills. There are elements that we need to have in place. And we will talk about those a little bit. But for everyone over here who has said that they haven't started or they're just starting, I'm hoping that from the rest of the session, you do get some insights and inputs to really shape that journey a little bit. And for people who are in progress, would also love to hear, what are the practicalities that you are coming across? Are there any challenges? Are there any tactical solutions that you have identified that you could share with others to help others as well in their journey? Magdalena is already writing in chat. There is a ton of work happening regarding role skills profile, making sense of these, aligning our skill taxonomy, building skill maps for roles, aligning curriculum. That's great, Magdalena, because I feel that your organization and you are right now already doing that groundwork, which is kind of, again, essential to prioritize skills in the entire journey of that talent life cycle.
And when she says it's a ton of work, it is a ton of work. And also, it's important to have vendors and partners you work with on that journey, because it's a work that never quite finishes. There's always maintenance to be done. And so I think it's really important to make sure you've got colleagues internally and partners externally that can help you with the maintenance of that and bring in skills from outside. You'd never want to do that from scratch for the first time and try and do it for the entire organization. It's just been an enormous amount of work. A skills audit, Katrina says, is out of date as soon as it's been started. How do you capture new skills as they are developed? I'm going to put that in the questions box, because I think it's a really fundamental question, and let's deal with that at the end. Okay. And Magdalena also says having absolute external partners means you have less bias and more inspiration. You also have the possibility of saying to people internally, well, look, we're using this, let's say, skills taxonomy, and we're bringing this in from outside. We're not making this up. Other people have done a lot of work creating this. It's kind of useful. Let's work with it. Okay, let's move on. I'm aware that there's all more to cover. Yep.
Just a few more minutes from me, but I want to now double down a little bit more on what is the skills-based organization? How does it really look like? And it's no rocket science. It's really what is in the word. Skills-based organizations are organizations that are prioritizing skills to nurture the talent, to manage talent across the entire talent life cycle. So right from hiring to onboarding to helping people develop to helping people perform to mobilizing people to valuing employees, skills guide those decisions. And organizations are increasingly realizing that formal job titles are not able to keep up with this rapidly changing world. And skills are becoming more central in identifying work, deploying talent, managing careers, valuing employees as well. So, in essence, skills based organizations decouple work and workers from traditional job boundaries. They think of work as a collection of tasks that needs to be done. And by no means here am I saying that these organizations are deleting jobs or ditching their job architectures. No, we are just liberating people from their job titles, enabling them to flow into the areas of the business where their skills can create maximum value, just keeping it a little bit more fluid, which means that these organizations view employees not as job holders, but as a combination of unique skill sets and capabilities. These organizations use skills to power all the work and workforce decisions, but also, very importantly, they create something called Skills Hub, which is like a powerhouse consisting of skills data, governance, and technology to really ensure that skills are guiding all decisions. Now, how does that journey really look like? And I'm hoping that a lot of these discussions that we were having will get covered to some extent over here. It is almost a four-phase journey in my head, and it really starts with collecting data. And collecting data is complex because data on people's skills is spread across the board. There was another research that we did called How the Workforce Learns in 2021, which showcased that only 34% of employees believed that their recent, most up to date data on their skills was actually hosted within their HR systems. Because data on people's skills is spread across the board, across systems, across websites, documents, even in people's heads. So this is one of the most complex steps. And collecting data almost starts with identifying what are the sources of skills data that we want to consider. What is the language of skills that we want to be speaking? Is there a skills taxonomy that we are going to be using? What would be the source of that skills taxonomy? Is that going to be a homegrown taxonomy that we build from scratch? Or is that going to be something that we rely on third party, external providers for? HSBC, for example, is using the skills taxonomy published by World Economic Forum and tweaking it in parts of the business. And then there are various considerations as well, such as where do we really store the skills data? What is the kind of governance around use, around the visibility of the skills data? And how does this data flow and map into other systems to map against jobs, map against job architectures and functions? So no matter where you are in the journey, whether it is a broader implementation that you're doing or a smaller pilot, this is one phase that I believe continues to evolve and it needs to be revisited over time again and again. The phase two of this journey consists of assessing proficiency, which means identifying a common way of validating skills within the organization. And there are various approaches to assessing proficiencies within the organization. One is letting employees self-assess their skills, asking managers to rate them, asking peers to rate them. The other approach is to take a more formal approach of having dedicated assessments and assignments to really understand the proficiencies of people, or even relying on third-party external providers such as Pluralsight Skills IQ to really understand and assess skills. But once we understand the skills that exist, the proficiencies that exist within the company, we then look at developing skills, which is what kind of skill building is required for which individuals and which groups. And here, everyone recognizes that bringing people out of their day jobs to really do training, to really build skills is kind of tricky. And another 2021 BCG research states that people actually like to learn on the job. So really considering hands-on experiences and opportunities such as projects and gigs along with those curated programs for holistic skill building is actually essential. And the last phase is to deploy skills, really using skills as the fuel to power workforce planning, succession planning, developing high potential individuals, or also matching employees to talent mobility opportunities, or flipping it over to the employees, letting them discover those projects, gigs, assignments, new job opportunities basis the skills that they have. The one thing in this journey that we really need to keep in mind is the employee experience. People don't remember what you said or what you did. They actually remember how you make them feel. And our people are going to be at the heart of this transformation. What works or doesn't work for them will make or break this transformation. All right. This is my concluding slide. If you didn't listen to anything I said, then probably this is the time to tune in. But I want to leave you with these 5 pillars, which I believe are key and critical to this transformation journey. The first one is to actually start with business value, with business outcomes, to ensure that this strategy to being skills based is actually you're in it for the right reasons. And when you think about skills based work, think about evolution, not revolution. As they say, Rome is not built in a day. So changing these long standing paradigms on jobs and job structures is not going to happen overnight. And I agree that all of you already know the kind of work that goes into these things. And we've seen organizations start with smaller pilot initiatives, maybe tackling only one area of the business, one practice in the business, which is actually more closely tied to skills. And in our experience, it's been learning most of the cases. It's also very essential to have that skills taxonomy, have that clear skill strategy, and a common way of validating skills, because that can actually help organizations do a lot of groundwork to prioritize skills over job titles. And as Donald mentioned, in this journey, we are going to be working with so many technology partners, be it HR partners, be it learning technologies, be it data technologies. So it's really important that these technologies integrate, ensure that there is a seamless data flow between them so that our skills data is getting mobilized effectively. And the last one, not the least, it's very important, is stakeholder buy-in and engagement. Having the right executive sponsors, ensuring that there are people driving change in this initiative across the organization is really important. But this initiative, the success of this initiative, does not rely on the shoulders of a select few. We need to involve everyone within the organization, because when everyone is involved, everyone wins. The last thing I promise here, I just, I, I know it's been a while, but the last thing that I want to leave you with is that the gain of becoming a skills-based organization far outweighs the pain of the process. And the number one obstacle that we have seen organizations face is the fear of imperfect data. But I would urge you that we need to start, and we need to start somewhere and make progress. So don't let imperfect data hold you back, and don't let perfection be the enemy of progress.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I love that, Kriti. Yes, you don't want the perfect to be the enemy of the good. I'm going to put my camera back on. Thank you so much. Great job. We're going to go into Q&A. We're going to do the Q&A as we always do with chat, rather than sharing microphones. We've got enough people that if we shared microphones, it would slow things down. There's a lot of stuff to cover. I think those things you just said there, that there's a lot of work to be done, and your final point about needing to, that the pain is worth the gain. But the last point on the previous slide was stakeholder engagement. Without that, you're not going to get that, are you? You're not going to get people into the business of saying it's worth the pain for now. So but my first question, very quickly before we get into these questions, is how do you get the stakeholder engagement? Without that, I'm not convinced you could become a skills-based organization. Where does that come from, Kriti?
We've seen most of the times when we talk to prospects and clients is that having one person involved, aligned, seeing the value of this initiative, having that kind of blessing within the business really helps. And a lot of communication. It's just, it's communication. It is always, people look at it from a perspective of what's in it for me. And our communication needs to be aligned to letting people, if it's employees, if it's our change management drivers, if it's executive sponsors, we need to ensure that everyone sees the value at the end of the day. That is what we've seen mostly organizations look at.
Thank you. And that focus on value is where everything should start. By the way, Marcus in the question says, asked a question about, do you think one skills framework will become universal? And he's given the example of Sophia. And I don't think he means one skills framework across all skills, but perhaps in different sectors. Sophia is the skills framework for the information age. And I worked on this 20 years ago. It was to define the IT skills. And it now is pretty much, certainly in the UK and Europe, it is the framework that is used comprehensively in IT. Now, IT is probably something that lends itself to being well defined. Do you think that we're going to see similarly standard frameworks for skills evolve in the future? Or is every organization going to say, no, we're a bit different and we want to define things differently here?
The beauty really lies in diversity, is what I feel, Donald. I think everyone is so unique, so individualistic,
Yep.
and every organization is so different. It's really hard to say that there is going to be a monopoly in the skills framework side of things. It could be probably that you're experiencing this maybe in one part of the business, in one part of the world as well. But from what we're experiencing across geographies is that organizations are actually approaching it so uniquely that I'm unable to see a pattern in terms of one particular skills framework being adopted.
Of course, there's both sides of this. We won't dwell on it now. We haven't got time. We could probably spend an hour talking about the standardization of skills frameworks, taxonomies, and ontologies. Magdalena said, would moving to learning, remember your continuum, meaning you're more focused on assessments of whether learning has happened? I think that's one part of it. But could you talk about assessment across the whole thing? Training might be very focused on assessment. How much is skills-based organizations, how much are they relying on assessment?
So skills-based organizations are definitely relying on assessments, but we've seen a variety of approaches taken by organizations. Right. Sometimes
and
there
could
is
you also be clear what you're meaning about assessments? And by the way, we've got something like 2 minutes, so just try to do the impossible, please.
All right, then. When I talk about assessment, it's almost approached with the objective of identifying at what level are people actually able to execute or perform on a specific skill set. Now, those assessments can be really approached from a high rigor, really easy to collect skills data kind of a perspective. So people rating themselves, managers rating them, peers rating them. But there are key critical skills, such as Boeing, for example, for their technical skills, they have designated assessments. So organizations are taking a mixed approach. Assessments for really critical technical skills, but also self and manager and peer rating to get that data quickly in to make high level decisions on upskilling and reskilling.
And just to be clear, you're talking about, are people capable? That's what we're assessing here. We're not assessing whether learning's taking place necessarily. The learning is the route to the goal of capability.
Yes, it is all about skilling through alternate routes. We need to recognize that what works for one may not work for others.
Just scrolling through here, looking at the other questions. Katrina had this really good question, which I'm going to try to type the answer to because, of course, Katrina's having some audio problems. In 1 minute, a skills audit is out of date as soon as it's been started. How do you capture new skills as they're developed? How do you keep your skills inventory up to date?
Yep. And I think Deloitte report also covers this. It's not about over-indexing on skills. We need to take a top-down and a bottoms-up approach. So we can have 5 key critical skills, maybe designed or defined for a specific role, but we need to start collecting skills data from people as well. What are skills that are being reported by people increasingly in a specific job, so that we are actually keeping in tune with those emerging skills as work is getting done on the field, but at the same time also capitalizing on that skills taxonomy by providing some guidance on key critical skills within roles.
Brilliant. Okay, so you need to have a focus on the key skills and the emerging skills, and it's not a matter of doing it top down necessarily, but of being in touch with the people on the ground to understand what it is that they are tackling and facing. Right. I'm trying to summarize that as evidenced on the ground. Okay, we've probably got time we've got 30 seconds. Do you have an example of a skills framework and ecosystem very quickly? An example of it that's, I mean, we've talked about Ericsson, but is there one that's actually up and running that you could look at and say, yes, they're doing it well?
Lots of organizations, really. HSBC was an example that I
Yes.
spoke about, using World Economic Forum, but there are also so many organizations using lightcast frameworks. The organization name does not come to me, but there are also financial frameworks that exist out there in the open that a lot of our banking and financial clients are actually currently using. So I don't have typically an example of who's using what, but there's a variety of practices.
And beneath that, unlike the Ericsson or the Unilever example, we have the idea that they're using specific frameworks in specific areas to have an impact on key roles rather than it extending across the organization. Is that fair enough?
It is fair enough, but I would say that having one framework across the organization is what we have seen, maybe starting from a specific function or a specific practice or a specific department is what we have seen, because we want to be speaking the same language of skills. At the end of the day, project management in IT needs to mean the same thing as project management in finance.
Brilliant. Look, I love this topic. It's so important. Kriti not only loves it, she's also very, very well informed about it. It's so much in there. I want to say thank you to everybody in the room. Loads of great sharing of stuff there. Oh, I haven't put all those resources. I'm just putting the resources over in the left-hand box here, so we've got those captured. So please, by all means, go and click on those links. And thank you to everyone who put links in. I've tried to capture not necessarily all of them, but some of them. And there we are. The most important thing is to link in with Kriti. She's going places. She's definitely somebody to follow and keep in touch with. It's been great to chat. Kriti, I'm going to just leave the last word to you, and then I shall close the doors. Kriti, but anything else you'd like to say to inspire us on our journey to being a skills-based organization?
It's been a pleasure. I want to hear from you. I want to learn from you. So please reach out. And I hope that we continue this conversation elsewhere on all the other forums.
Fabulous. I always say it's the end of the presentation, but it's the start of the conversation. So let's keep in touch with Kriti. I heartily agree. That's the way to do it. Everybody, thank you so much. We've got another one coming up at 12 o'clock UK time. That's in 1 hour. So I hope to see you then. It's going to be, guess what, about AI, which is what every other presentation is about at the moment, but actually very good and well worth attending. Look forward to seeing you there, Kriti, once again. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.